Nice. Okay, so we are
Surviving.
now broadcasting. You're
Hello.
surviving. Good. Okay, I want to hear all about that. Kristen, it's great to see. This is a Savage Brushstroke. I just found the name of this show. I just came up with the show like maybe 45 minutes ago. So
Great.
this is brand new all over.
Oh, great.
So the basic thing we're going to talk about is first I want you to tell me how you're coping with the quarantine. How are you? What's that for you? What's that like for you right now?
Um, it's pretty good. I think I've been preparing for this for at least the past 3 years, but definitely about a decade. Just because of like
What?
deal.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Because I've been like after like quitting my bartending job, I really kind of focused on getting my own process going. So like when I am home, I am productive and working on my own art. So like this the only thing is like I'm just a little bit more stir crazy than usual, but like other than that, it's the same process where I wake up and you know, make some food and then start working on things. And I'm comfortable being at home and being in my own space for a long period of time,
So I want to
which is
provide,
pray.
yes, I want to provide some context, which I didn't do on the last show. I'm learning as I'm going. Okay, so
Cool.
Chris and
Great.
I we know each other from the improv scene, from performing with Off Top,
Yeah.
specifically performing hip hop improv with Ray Morency's group Off Top. I and you also have another project that I know of that you brought me into, which is called Troubadour, which is
Yeah.
you assemble a band of diverse musicians and some freestylers and rappers like ourselves, and they do shows where an audience will no comedians will come up and tell a story, a real
Yeah.
story from their life, and then the band will improvise a whole song or even a set, kind of a transforming song based on what the story they just heard, so completely improvised.
Yeah.
Yes, so those
Yeah.
are the things I know of
Yeah.
that you do. What don't I know about?
Oh, what don't you know about? I also do visual art. So that's actually something that I've picked up in the past. Well, I've let it drop and come and go, but in the past 3 years, I've gotten back into it, and it's mainly just been like taking clothes apart and putting them back together. But currently, I'm working on some like embroidery stuff that's been fun and rewarding. Um,
And yes.
yeah, and then I'm also working on like beats and loops and music on my own.
Wow. So okay, I want to ask about each. So the embroidery and clothing stuff, that's pretty new. Is that just for your own edification, for your own this fulfills me, or are you also like Etsying or like, hey, do you guys want to buy this online, like, or whatever it is, or taking them to thrift shops or whatever?
Yeah, I'm getting to the process where like yeah, I am going to start selling it. It really was just something to do with my hands while I was hanging out at home watching TV. Um and that's kind of always like I took it much more seriously kind of pre-college, and then was always like doodling and stuff just to keep my time filled. But now like I have some works that I can actually sell, so that's part of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
um yeah, dude. um yeah, and then the music stuff, that is also just to that it's to keep my brain alive while, but obviously we work on music stuff performing, so brain alive for
What
those
it,
situations.
so I know that you can rap and freestyle. Do you sing? You sing some. Yeah.
I I do sing. I'm getting more and
Yeah.
more comfortable doing it in front of people. Anxiety sometime around teenage years kind of held me back. But yeah, that's also something that I've been like easing my way back into.
And
When
what
I'm
is your is your interest in because you do a pretty fair amount of improv. Is your interest in that from the comedy angle? Is your interest in that from an actor angle? I don't know if you like went to school and studied acting, or is it just that you stumbled on the improv and you love improv? And is your interest mostly in hip hop improv or in improv in general? And hip hop improv is a big part of your is just a big part of that interest.
Yeah, I wish that I could say I could say for sure how all this stuff fits together. um Part of it is just and you're also like a multi-talented creator. Like part of it is just always making sure that I'm making things that make me feel good, and keep me stimulated and feel like they're coming from like a place where I am full. So like when I stumbled on hip hop improv, it just happened to be like the best comedy community that I like wanted to continue to participate in. And like I've always been writing poetry and like songs and stuff like that, but hip hop improv gave me an in that felt like, okay, I have a handle on this. Like it isn't so scary. It isn't so scary getting on stage and being funny and rapping with people. What is very, very scary for me is getting on
Mm.
stage and singing and saying, "Hey, this is something that I wrote on my own. I think it's good. Do you also enjoy this?" Um, so like,
Wow.
yeah, but with so what am I thinking with that?
It's
That
interesting
was
that you would rather improvise something in front of people that could take you in any direction rather than go, I worked on this and I think it's good and here it is. And I'm
yeah,
gonna full out give it to you unabashed. You'd
yeah,
rather be like, we just made this up
yeah,
and here it is. Here's all of it,
yeah.
Because I don't see you as a performer who like holds back or winks and is like, well, I just made this up. You commit to it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, I think as I've discovered over the years, I think that that like adrenaline of like this has to happen now is very useful for me. And that's why like freestyling, improvising, even with stand up, like I give myself a lot of room to improvise while I'm on stage, and it's just like, okay, you have 10 minutes and you got to get out. You have some jokes, but if you want to go down like different alleyways and improvise the moment, like you only have 10 minutes to do it. So it's like that racing clock. Uh
That that is so to put all this together, you do sort of this kind of collage stuff with clothing. You make
yeah.
beats and stuff. You write and do a little bit of poetry. You can rap. You can freestyle. You do improv. It sounds like most of what you do is hip hop improv. You do this troubadour project where you assemble these musicians together and put on these shows where you do these improvised songs off of people's stories, and you also do stand up.
Yeah.
Am I missing
Yeah.
anything? It sounds like you're in there. Uh, There's a lot.
Bro, I'm a trained ballerina. I did theater. Like I got an undergrad in world cinema. Like I hope to eventually like make films and all of that. But like, you know, it's just like this swirling mass of energy and like yeah, it's kind of like a tornado. I pick up as much as I can and then spit it out
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and see what happens.
Okay.
um,
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so this is a good
yeah.
point. I think I have a lot of context for you, so this is a good point to get to these two pieces that you've chosen. You can do them in well, actually, let's do them in the order first of like the famous artist or the artist that you don't know, whoever it is,
Yeah.
and what that piece is that has greatly influenced you. What is that? Can you oh, do you have it on hand? If you can, if it's a scene from a movie, if it's a painting, is it something that you could show us?
Yeah. Well, I actually I can let me just show a picture of the work. I'll give
Yes,
you
I
this
should have
one.
told you to find it earlier. And this is I'm learning on
Sorry.
my learning curve.
Um
No, don't be sorry. It's all me.
well, it's so this is a work that like I saw in person when I was in high school, and it was like And that was like a huge influence on me. And then from there, like, so the artist is Anselm Kiefer. I wonder if I can. Sorry, I'm trying to find a big version of it. So for the viewers at home, um, can you? Okay, hang on. This is a good. Okay, so can you see this here? Oh man, here I got to turn off the ring light. There goes my good lighting. You can
Okay.
barely see it.
Ding.
Oh, it's a painting. It's a painting. Yeah,
It's
it's
cool.
it's a painting. I wish I could like pull it up on this screen, but this is part of the process.
Okay.
As a creator and
Yeah.
producer, I
I'll
have all the
post
empathy
a
for.
picture of it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I'll do actually? If we, yeah, I'll post a link or I'll post a picture of it in the comments so that people can see
Okay,
it.
cool.
In this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But talk to me about it.
So it's a painting. It's like very big. It's huge. Like when I'm standing in front of it, it goes way over my head, and that's kind of like typical of Anselm Kiefer's work. It all tends to be very big paintings that kind of like envelop you. And like the thing that I've always loved about his work is like they're these kind of like messes, but like they kind of give the sense of like, even though they're a mess and they're kind of like conveying a sense of decay, there's also something very like precious and intimate about the spaces and the landscapes that he creates. um and like digging further into all of his work, like that was just my like initial reaction to like the textures that he creates. But like he's part of the like neo expressionist group. Like they were part of this like group that grew up with like parents who fought in World War II, or but like
Mm,
on the side of the Germans. um
mm,
and
mm.
so a lot of his work is dealing with like German mythology and German culture, and like what does it mean to be living in this society, even like as a child growing up in like the ruins of World War II. Like that kind of mythology and landscape and what all that, like expressing that and dealing with like both the grief of it and the guilt of it, and finding kind of healing through landscape.
Where did you encounter that particular piece? How did you first encounter it?
I saw it at, I think it's part of the permanent collection at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C.
Hmm.
And then I was fortunate enough to hear him speak at the 92nd Street Y. Like this had to be about a decade ago. Um,
Mm,
just talking
mm,
about his work and his process. Um, and like he's also like a quote that I'll never forget from that was he talks about how like his process is he just tries to get it out as much as possible. Like there's like an essential emotion that also happens while you're like creating with all of these materials. So like he tries to get stuff out and then see what he's created, and then you work from there. Um,
yes, yes, yes.
and that kind of solidified like a lot of stuff for in terms of like process for me is like you improvise, you kind of work a little bit blindly. Even like with Troubadour, it's like I'm putting people into a room and I'm just seeing what they create and like how all of this like energy bounces off each other, and like sometimes it makes a mess, but it's a real beautiful mess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Um, huh. I mean that there's such a pattern there in terms of like all of the kinds of work you're doing and what seems like your approach to being an artist, which is just like you said, like, yeah, I have some information, then I go, okay, this is what I'm gonna make out of it, and I'm gonna go here and here and here and here and here, and then I'll see what it is when it's
Yeah,
done. When it's wow, wow,
yeah.
and that's so interesting. That like brings up this idea of like maybe you can speak back to this, but like chicken or the egg, like are did you are you drawn to that piece and that artist and his way of working because you recognize in it something in you, or did it plant a seed of something in you that's been growing over the last 10 years, and now it's helped you develop into this way of working.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna turn on my ring light. So yeah, there you go, baby. Like, yeah, I'm
Yay.
very vain on talking about this.
Yes,
um,
yes, yes.
but
Live it.
uh, no, I think that it was something that like I recognize that that's how I work. Like, you know, like when you find these influences. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have had my creative process encouraged from a very young age, and have been encouraged to be as much of
Mm,
like in my own artistic process, much a little bit to the resentment of my parents. But
okay.
so like but that what was unique and nice about that is like I could see artists and I'm like, oh, this is something, I don't know what this is, but I know that this is something that I react to, and it's something that like is organic to what I'm also doing, or trying to do. And so it's just like then you just start like clawing your way down that path to see if like you can follow their process and get somewhere else in your own process and work and art. Does that make
So
sense?
so I'm not sure yet, so I'm gonna try to open it up for myself. So what you're saying is because you're so practiced and you've sort of been in this corridor your whole life of creativity, that when another artist opens the door of their process, you can immediately look and go, oh, I think there's something down there for me in terms of I can learn something from this, or somehow adapt some of this to my process. Let me start going down there and see, and continue to see, okay, yeah, I think I can use this, and then you'll start to, once you're in that corridor, go, okay, now let me do my own version of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
think I
uh,
mean I do yeah, I think that there's all these like little micro synapses going on in everyone's brain, and sometimes you recognize that someone else's are in sync with yours, and like art is a great way to figure that
mm,
out. So
mm,
yeah, I actually
wow.
love talking to you because I've got all these like bullshit like art teacher things that like and highfalutin theories about all this stuff. So like you really do like open up and hold a space for that, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm into. Yeah, I'm all for that. So this is a good time to segue into now the peer artwork that you want to talk about, and that how that piece has influenced you. So like somebody that you know, some piece of art from somebody that you know, could, whatever that is.
Yeah. So I actually want to talk about I mean it's its own kind of it's both like a space and a party, and unfortunately they're not in the like space that I encountered them. But okay, so it was called Dream House,
Uh-huh.
and it was a party space out off the Halsey L stop, and they also go by
Wow.
Spectrum, and
Okay.
it was like the most like I encountered them in this like it was this just like a legal party space. It used to be like it's like from the outside, it looks like a ranch house, like an old Western ranch house. And then you go in and there's like this weird tiled floor and balconies and stuff like that. But what like emerged there was this party space, and there were the most amazing like it was just queer art parties every night with like the most amazing DJs coming through. And like what I give I think about it as its own work of art because like the producers and the creators
Mm.
there, Gage the Boon is one of the main artistic minds behind it. And
Gauge the
they,
boon.
yeah. I mean, these are all people that I've met in passing. I'll give a shout out to my friend Salonia Lenan. And girl, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. She's very Irish and delightful. But
Uh,
these are all people who have like turned their lives into works of art, and like
mm,
the costumes and the like, I mean it's not even costumes, like they put together like full art pieces to go out to the club, and then specifically with Spectrum and Dreamhouse, like what was created was this place where you could go and you could do you to the most of you, and nobody's there to judge. Everybody's there to be like, oh, this is fab. Like whatever authentically is coming out of you is beautiful.
My God, I am so fascinated with this. When I first moved to New York, the thing that was really big was Rubulad.
Yeah.
And then
Very,
now,
yeah,
very similar kind of this
vibe.
kind of yes, yeah, right, or at least place they occupy in art and event world. And
Yeah,
then I hosted karaoke for years at Cobra Club, which is Caddy Corner shares a wall with House of Yes. And
yeah,
House of Yes is this big outgrowth of that exact kind of culture. And
yeah,
and now this Spectrum Dream House, which I hadn't heard of.
yeah.
Man, I want to ask you how their influence has figured into your own art life, but I want to first, could you, to me, it's at once a little bit opaque, like it's not a world I'm totally into, so I don't totally understand it. But then it also makes lots of sense to me in terms of our generation, because what's interesting to me is like we're the first generation I feel like that can really appreciate Star Wars, because it existed, and I'm not even a Star Wars fan, but and Star Trek too, because they existed in full by the time we were born, so we could look
Mhm.
back on them and appreciate like, oh, somebody created this whole world, that Disneyland. And then we sort of are this generation of like Lord of the Rings, Marvel, MCU, all these worlds, huge anime worlds that people are into, video games for sure. Like video games really came into their own in our generation. Huge epic television shows. So we're really, and even our music artists, we want them to be world builders. Beyonce, Katy Perry, Childish Gambino, all the DJs that we love. We want them to all be these world builders. We want them to build this world that we can go into. Kanye, all these people. Can you? I don't 100% understand that. Can you talk to me about, if you identify with any of this I'm talking about, what is the
Yeah.
passion there? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Uh, uh, I'm wondering. Well, actually, so I'm wondering if you're talking about this specifically in relation to Spectrum, or if you're just in. I can talk about it in both things. And
Yes,
this is
yes,
yeah.
both. Yeah.
Um,
Let's see if they
because
meet somewhere.
yeah, because like I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if this is important for what I'm about to discuss, but whatever.
Perfect.
Because I was just listening to Russell Brand talk about this whole crisis, and he was like,
Love Russell Brand so
right,
much. I don't listen to
right,
everything because he's a little sometimes long-winded about different things, but in certain
yeah,
moments I find him so brilliant, and I
yeah,
love Russell Brand. So I'm right there with you. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. But he was talking about like, isn't it crazy? Like, this is reminding us that like, isn't it crazy that like we civilization is just a clearing in the woods, and like at the end of the day, our communities are just like groups of people who are organizing and choosing to take care of one another. And so just think about this, like Disney World is just it came out of someone's imagination. Like that's what's so crazy to me is like Star Wars, all of this stuff. Like these are fantasy worlds that we can now look at and touch, and they are truly coming from someone's brain. And so with that, what is my point? Um, oh, I guess so. That's truly what I loved about uh, Spectrum is like there is this is like this fantasy world that only it was a moment in time. I mean, at least in the space that they were in. I haven't been to any of the new parties, and I'm so sorry. Uh, uh, I, I like it hit me right at the pinnacle of like, yes, let's go out and club.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
uh, yeah, and obviously no one's clubbing right now,
Yeah,
except in our own. Um,
yeah.
but
I actually
it's
saw a
this
great sketch of
they
that, of this guy who walks into his own. It looks like an apartment, and I'm sure it's his own apartment. But there's like a filter on the camera that it's got all these lights, and he walks in. He's got glasses on, and his friend like checks his pass and pats him down, and then he goes and sits on the couch, and he just like pulls out his phone. He's on the couch like doing, and then his kids come out, but they have champagne bottles, and they put him on the thing, but they're like children, they're like 4-year-old, and he's like, yeah, I'm in the club, and then his friend who's just standing by the door walks over and he's like, you gotta get off the couch, my man. And it's like they're just in his
Yeah.
house. It's so good. Anyway, but yeah, so
Yeah.
there's clubbing like that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, but like I think that there's truly what am I thinking? There's like truly magic to be able to like walk into someone else's imagination. And I that's what I really loved about Spectrum is like not only is this like the producers and the creators imagination and like the event the event producers for the party like it's their imagination, but you're also like you have three, it's a fully immersive experience, so it also ignites your imagination. Like you apply your own imagination to like dress up for the event, to fully like inhabit and embody that space. And like I don't know, everybody loves a good party. Like parties are where our brains feel like the most on fire. They said that what did they no, I'm trying to reference a neurological study that I won't be able to remember, but like these are these moments. But I do feel like it is religious. Like I feel like because there's a reason why we have like cathedrals, there's a reason why like the Catholic Church is fully like an aesthetic. Like the parties and these spaces to like commune with each other are also ways to like get all of our imaginations on the same wavelength for a moment in time. And you feel good, you feel open. It's how you make friends. It's how it's how you really like forge human bonds, I think.
And so where do you feel like that um, that concept and particularly Dream House Spectrum's version of that, how has their own version of that concept affected your art? How did it affect you, and how do you see it manifesting in your art and your art process?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me permission to go hard. Like um I do think that like walking into that space and seeing people, it's like I always look to like George Clinton as an idol. Uh because like
Mm.
he George Clinton does him and
That's a
throws a
world
party. He's
builder
like a
right
shaman.
there. Yeah, that's a world
Yeah,
builder.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like being in this like shaman spiritual space, but it's also like fully aesthetic and and people go hard. Like, uh I'm trying to think. Like these are like performance artists that are like turning their lives into a work of art, or like a night at the club is a work of art.
Mm.
Um and it's also like
Mm.
it's specifically a queer space, and like I would go out, like I mean I hate to say it, but even like I go to House of Yes now, and I don't feel it feels more heteronormative. It feels heteronormative in a way that I feel kind of alienated by. um
Mm.
i i I think there are good creators there, and I think that there are people who are trying to keep that space open and fun. But like I'm not going to a club so I can get hit on. I'm going to a club because this is where I
Mm.
feel the most alive. Like when I get on the dance floor, I'm dancing for me. I'm not
Mm.
dancing to like, I mean, sometimes I'm dancing to seduce someone, but more often than not, like I'm going there to get free. um and that was the space that like Spectrum gave me, was like everybody's there. I mean, there's still like people are there to hook up, but like it was a queer space where I felt like, oh, like I can really relax into myself here, and I can be comfortable, and like everything's okay.
I have so many. I have so many questions, and um, mm, okay, is that so you're finding that a lot, that kind of point or that level of liberation that you wanted a lot at Spectrum and at those parties. Has that
Yeah.
now become a marker or a reference point of like, if I can get to this feeling in my own work, then I know I am, or at least a target, like that's what I need to get to. You know, whether you're improvising or doing stand up or making clothes, like I'm trying to get to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. And like I don't know, have you ever walked into a party or like seen art or whatever and you're like, this is the moment, like this is the pinnacle of the moment, of like whether it's uh just like this is there is something authentic and beautiful here that could only happen right now.
I've had a lot of
That
those, and I
was
live for those moments. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could. I mean, I could rattle off like 5 of them right now. Yeah, so I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so strange because I wonder and I fear if those get rarer as we get older, or if those get rarer because we're now so steeped in art. Like we're around art so much, maybe we're less susceptible to that.
Well, I think I was until I found that, like until I think I had been searching for that. Like, I read all the books about Andy Warhol's parties and, CBGBs and all of these like, cool spaces that seem to like accelerate like an artistic moment. And like I was always and like I grew up in church and like I felt connected to
Same.
people.
Yeah.
Like there was a certain like what fun feels like without I don't know, like, what fun feels like when you feel safe and you feel connected to other people. And I've always
Mm.
been searching for that. And I think I found that, and I don't need to search for it as hard as I was, you know?
Mm. Wow.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Man, I feel like we could go on and on. I feel like
Yeah.
this is good because now okay, I'm making a list now of at some point maybe there will be a part 2 because now I have other things with you that I want to talk about that I'm going to even make note of right
Yeah.
now. Um,
Cool.
this sort of the religion connection, the sort of sublime or the divine.
Ooh, yeah.
I know. I feel like we connect on those points, and I mean that's very, very big for me. I like to be brief. Like there's moments when I would host karaoke, for example, especially when I first started. It happened later as I got better at it, ironically. But when I first started, there would be points when I would be. I don't know if you ever made it to one of my parties, but we'd be dancing in the room and somebody would be singing, and there would be points and moments where I would be like, I'm an antenna and everyone's joy in this room is filtering through me, and I am like bringing it down from heaven and like cycling it back and forth. Like there's like a
Yeah.
pinnacle of this party, and I have like reach, and like not in a way that everybody, like I'm not the star, the person singing, everyone's dancing, but it's like I'm the host, so like everything is sort of, I'm marshaling everything, in a way.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
like, and there's the moments like that when you're
You're the
just like,
reverend.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
everyone else is having
Yeah.
their experience, but you're the reverend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
No.
much. I think I understand some parts of what you mean. Okay,
Yeah.
so yes.
Oh, well, I'll leave because I think this is a good time for us to wrap it up. But like, I will my thoughts about like
Yes.
church service or whatever, or even just like holding like spiritual space for people. Um, why? Man, hang on. Actually, I can't reference it properly, but I will say that like part of being a friend to people is being able to hold space, and part of having like a I don't know. Never mind. I thought I had a good point, but it's going to take too much
That,
to get it out. But
that's something we're
I
going
think we found
to
some good
revisit
things
as
here.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Holding
Yeah.
space for a friend.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. I like that as well, and I what is it? I struggle with it, but it's 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 definitely something I have to consider because a lot of times I'm like, oh, I'm black, so I'm a minority, but like a lot of times I find like, oh, in a lot of ways I have I have I'm not even gonna say privilege, although I know I have that, but like power. I have something that someone else needs, and I can
Yeah.
choose whether or not to give it to them, and I can choose whether or not to give it to them gracefully.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna
Oh
pretend
yeah.
that that's always easy. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's good. Okay. So at some point,
Yeah.
someday, maybe towards the end of the quarantine, at some point, we'll do a part 2 of this. This has been great,
Cool.
Captain
Yeah.
Kirkley. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
We'll
it's
talk
been a
to you again.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. All
Sweet.
right. Bye.
Bye.
Savage Brushstroke. There's another episode. This is episode 2. The Savage Brushstroke. What up?